Everything you think you know about Spartan warriors is wrong. You see perfection. You see King Leonidas, the 300, a wall of bronze and muscle holding back a tidal wave of an empire. We have built an entire global mythos around their discipline, their sacrifice, their physical supremacy. We see them as the ultimate warriors, forged in the fires of a perfect system. But that perfection was not a gift. It was not destiny. It was design. It was the end product of a systematic, state-controlled, and utterly ruthless program of human engineering. We celebrate the product, the Spartan warrior. Today, we uncover the brutal process. This wasn't just training. This was selective breeding. To understand why Sparta would embrace such a brutal practice, you have to understand its deepest, darkest secret. Sparta was not a nation. It was a prison camp. And the Spartans were the guards. The ruling class, the homoioi, or the equals, were a tiny minority. They lived on top of a massive, conquered, and enslaved population known as the Helots. By some estimates, the Helots outnumbered the Spartans 10-1. Try to imagine that. Every meal you eat, every night you sleep, you are surrounded by a population that despises you and would kill you in an instant if given the chance. This wasn't a distant threat. It was a constant, suffocating reality. The Spartan state wasn't just at war with Persia. Its very existence was a permanent state of internal war against its own workforce. In this constant state of emergency, weakness was not a personal failing. It was a threat to the state's survival. It was a crack in the wall of shields. And Sparta's solution was to ensure that no weak Spartan was ever allowed to draw a second breath. This obsession didn't start with the child. It started with the mother. In the rest of ancient Greece, a good woman was a quiet woman. In Athens, women were hidden away, kept indoors, their existence confined to weaving and managing the home. Spartan women were a shocking anomaly. They were visible. They trained their bodies, often exercising naked alongside the men. They ran, they wrestled, they threw the discus and the javelin. They were famously outspoken. They owned land, and they managed the estates while the men were in the barracks. But do not mistake this for 21st century empowerment. This freedom had one state-mandated purpose: to produce strong children. The Spartan lawmaker Lycurgus, it was said, believed the most important job of a free woman was to bear children. He believed a child's strength began in the womb. The state didn't just hope for strong babies. It engineered the mothers to produce them. The state viewed its women as critical assets, the first and most important factory in the Spartan war machine. This state obsession with reproduction was total. If a marriage failed to produce a child, the state could, and would, order the husband to find another, more vital man, to impregnate his wife. The goal was not the sanctity of marriage. The goal was not family. The goal was production. But the true horror of this system was revealed not in the cradle, but on a cold, desolate mountainside. When a Spartan child was born, it did not belong to the father or the mother. It belonged to the polis, the state. The father would take his newborn, not to his home, not to the warmth of its mother, but to a council of elders. They met at a place called the Apothetae, which translates chillingly to the place of rejection. Here the child was inspected, not for beauty, not for its family name. It was subjected to a cold, pragmatic assessment. It was inspected for its utility. Was it small? Was it weak? Did it cry too softly? Did it have any visible deformity? The ancient historian Plutarch, writing centuries later, describes it with bureaucratic clarity. If the child was sound and sturdy, the elders gave the order for it to be raised. If it was not, it was left at the Apothetae, at the foot of Mount Taygetus, to die of exposure or starvation. This is the critical difference that separates Sparta from the rest of the ancient world. In Athens, the father had the right to choose whether to raise a child, or expose it. It was a personal, often agonizing family decision. In Sparta, that right was stripped from the parents. The state was the ultimate father. The hierarchy was absolute. The state first. The collective survival second. The bond between a parent and their child was a distant, irrelevant third. This was not seen as murder. It was quality control. How could a society function this way? It required a complete psychological re-engineering of its citizens, starting from the moment they passed inspection. The children who survived the Apothetae were merely approved as raw material for the next phase, the Agoge. At age 7, boys were ripped from their mothers and fathers and moved into a military barracks. For the next 13 years, they were systematically brutalized. The system was designed to do one thing: destroy the individual. They were intentionally underfed, forced to steal food to survive. If they were caught, they were beaten. Not for stealing, but for being caught. They were taught to endure pain without flinching, to lie, to kill. This system was designed to erase all trace of individuality, to erase family loyalty, to replace the love for a mother with an unbreakable, unquestioning duty to the state. You create a society that accepts infanticide at birth by proving year after year that the individual does not matter, only the group matters. A Spartan mother, upon hearing her son had died in battle, would supposedly ask only if he had died bravely, facing the enemy. This wasn't because she was heartless. It was because she was a fully indoctrinated product of the same system. Her purpose was to produce a warrior. If he died as one, her purpose was fulfilled. This relentless, 2-decade-long process of eugenics and indoctrination created a unique kind of human being. It bred a mindset completely alien to our own. In our modern world, we value emotions like empathy, compassion, and mercy. We see them as core human strengths. In Sparta, these were not virtues. They were fatal liabilities. They were software errors to be identified and deleted. The final exam for the most promising students of the Agoge was the Kryptaia, the secret police. These were teenagers, armed with daggers, sent out into the countryside. Their mission: to hunt and kill the strongest, brightest, and most rebellious Helots as a form of population control. This wasn't war. It was state-sanctioned terrorism, designed to keep the Helots terrified and to finalize the desensitization of the young Spartan. They weren't just breeding soldiers. They were breeding a society that saw the world in a cold, brutal binary: strong or weak, useful or disposable, Spartan or non-Spartan. The ultimate irony: the very system designed to ensure Sparta's survival is what ultimately destroyed them. By obsessing over the quality of their soldiers, they annihilated their quantity. They bred themselves into extinction. Their rigid, unworkable standards, combined with constant warfare, meant their gene pool became a puddle. At their peak, there may have been 10,000 Spartan equals. The perfect military machine had run out of parts. It's easy to look back at the Spartans and see them as monsters, as a bizarre, brutal aberration of history. But their story survives as a chilling case study in an obsession that is still very much alive today. We are obsessed with performance, with optimization, with metrics. We biohack our bodies. We talk about genetic engineering and creating the perfect human. We filter our children's lives through the lens of performance, of test scores, of athletic scholarships, pushing them to be stronger, faster, and smarter. The Spartans simply took that obsession to its terrifying, logical conclusion. They show us what happens when a society, gripped by fear, decides that human beings are not individuals to be nurtured, but assets to be managed. The next time you see that idealized, chiseled statue of a Spartan warrior, remember the truth. That perfection was bought with a horrifying price. And remember the shadow of the Apothetae, the cold, quiet mountain where the state decided who was perfect enough to live, and who was simply left behind.